Season 5 of The Crown is out now, covering, to a large degree, the events of 1992. That year was so messed up for the British royal family that the late great Queen Elizabeth called it an Annus Horribilis. In this video, we're going to look at the things that happened in the Queen's horrible year, and also at the rumors that Prince Philip cheated on the Queen. Let's start at the very beginning. The year kicked off with events leading to the first of 3 royal divorces. By the time summer of 1992 began, Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, who were the Duke and Duchess of York, would no longer be together. This was the culmination of many issues between each other, but most would agree that the straw that broke the camel's back was Fergie's affair with Texas oil tycoon Steve Wyatt. Prince Andrew was a naval officer, and he spent a lot of time away from Fergie, and the couple had only seen each other for 40 days a year in the first 5 years of their marriage. Between his remoteness and the pressures of being in the royal family, a common theme, as you'll all see, Fergie had a pretty stressful life. Over this time, though, she developed a friendship with fellow rich person Steve Wyatt. The good old British tabloids published pictures of Wyatt with Fergie's daughter, which was the end of the line. While the couple separated in August of that year, things were about to get a lot worse for Fergie. The Daily Mirror published pictures of her hanging with another rich guy, John Bryan, kissing her toes while she sunbathed topless. That put the couple on the fast track to divorce, and the royal family was practically dying from embarrassment. After 4 years of living apart, the couple would finally end the marriage in 1996. As things were falling apart for Prince Andrew and Fergie, Princess Anne also got divorced. This was especially troubling for the royal family, as Princess Anne had been married to Captain Mark Phillips since 1973. By the time 1992 rolled around, most people considered this marriage to be one that would last. But you know what they say, all good things must come to an end. While the couple had organically fallen in love, there wasn't a lot of drama in this breakdown. It seems like the spark had fizzled out between them, and for years before the divorce, the two were rarely ever seen together. It turns out that they were both having affairs, and in April 1992, they finally decided to cut the knot and go their separate ways. Princess Anne remarried that same year, in December to be precise. Her second husband was Sir Timothy Lawrence, the guy she cheated on, Mark Phillips. Since she managed to get a discreet divorce and remarry in short order, Princess Anne was probably one of the least troublesome things about the Annus Horribilis. The country got a royal wedding out of it, and y'all know we love our royal weddings. Moving on, none of these compare to the explosive downfall of Prince Charles and Diana. Where do we begin with these two? It's hard to point at one thing in their story and say this was the beginning of the end of their marriage, when the marriage never really worked. But the train had left the station by 1986, when Diana started seeing Major James Hewitt, and Charles resumed his affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. In May 1992, Andrew Morton dropped a banger on the royal family, and that banger was called Deanna, Her True Story. A collaboration between Deanna and Morton laid bare all the realities of Deanna's life, including their affairs and her suicidal unhappiness. The Queen and Prince Philip called a crisis meeting to mediate peace between them, but it got nowhere. Things went from bad to worse later in the year, as those pesky tabloids began leaking tapes of telephone conversations the two had been having. We speak, of course, of the Squidgygate and Camillagate scandals of fall 1992, which blew the doors open on their affairs. Yeah, after all that had happened, no one was surprised when Prime Minister John Major closed the year by announcing the couple had separated. It would be a few years before they finally divorced, ending the suffocating tension they brought to each other's lives and the lives of the royal family. After all this, 1992 upped the ante by setting Windsor Castle on fire. Let us introduce you to Windsor Castle. While Buckingham Palace is the seat of power of the British monarch, this castle is the official residence of the Windsor family. It's the largest inhabited castle in the world, and the Queen used to spend a fair bit of time there. And then, in November 1992, the building caught fire. It all started with a spotlight pressed up against a curtain in the Queen's private chapel, which ignited the curtain. As we all learned from the 2019 Notre Dame fire, the timber and wood used to construct these old landmarks make them a fire hazard. This curtain quickly set the entire castle ablaze, and the fire was only controlled through the heroic efforts of the fire department. 6 people suffered minor injuries, but there were no human casualties. As for the building casualties, the fire had collapsed St. George Hall's ceiling, wrecked the Crimson Drawing Room, and of course, the Queen's private chapel. Many historical artifacts were lost too, including old portraits, furniture, and the Willis organ. It took a few years and a bill of $36.5 million to restore the castle, but in 1992, this was the cherry on top of an awful Sunday. Yeah, Annus Horribilis indeed. Few world leaders have had worse years than this. In conclusion, the worst thing about 1992 might be how it changed people's perceptions.
You see, it's much smaller, isn't it? I mean, it was the same height.
When Queen Elizabeth first took the throne in the UK, the British people still placed a lot of importance on the monarchy, but as time went on, people began questioning why they needed two competing groups at the top, and since Parliament is an elected office, many Britons began turning anti-monarchists. The events of 1992 didn't do much to convince the British people that the monarchy still had a role in modern British society. Well, besides being a real-life reality TV show, that is, the Queen could barely keep her ducks in a row at home, so people were suspicious of her role in British governance. Anti-monarchist sentiment is stronger now that one of the bad guys of the family wears the crown.
Fortunately, my father and I have about the same sort of shaped head. But once you put it on, it stays.
We wonder how long it can last after Queen Elizabeth. We'll move on to some old rumors of Prince Philip's cheating. This was an old story, but its portrayal in The Crown's new season has got the rumor mill spinning again. Although there was never any confirmation that the Duke of Edinburgh had been unfaithful and he loved his wife, many people in the UK take it for granted that Prince Philip had affairs. One of those people was the creator and showrunner of The Crown, Peter Morgan, and his belief has influenced the way he writes the fictional version of Philip. The undeniable truth was that Prince Philip was certainly a charmer. That was a part of his personality, making him popular with the ladies. It also led to speculations that he was having affairs, most famously with actress Pat Kirkwood, whose legs used to be called the world's eighth wonder. Kirkwood and her friends have always insisted that an affair took place, but they've never revealed any of the piles of evidence they supposedly have of this affair. On the long list of women Prince Philip is suspected to have slept with is Countess Mountbatten of Burma, Penelope Knatchbull. The two enjoyed a close relationship, and she was one of the 30 mourners invited to Philip's funeral, but nothing's ever been confirmed there. Finally, so did he do it? It's easy to see why people think he would. The royal family has become famous for being a hotbed of various infidelities, and it does seem impossible that Prince Philip didn't have at least one affair over the years. But again, we don't have any proof for any of the affairs that the Duke of Edinburgh was suspected of having. With the show's release, the late Queen's press spokesperson from 1998 to 2000 took to Channel 4 to defend the prince from these revived accusations. He described the Duke of Edinburgh as a window shopper who liked to see what was available but never took anyone to the checkout counter. With Penny in particular, he explained that the pair was drawn together by their mutual interest in carriages, as Prince Philip had developed arthritis and couldn't ride a horse. He acknowledged that the affair depicted in the show makes for good TV, but it isn't reality. That's a line the royal family themselves have to cross every time a new season of The Crown hits Netflix. Many things are being said about Prince Philip and his fidelity to his wife, but none of it is backed up by proof. At this point, the only one who knew the truth was the prince, who wasn't around to defend himself anymore. We may have to consider him innocent until proven guilty. That's it for today's video. Have you watched season 5 of The Crown yet? What do you think of the events it portrays? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.